Hey Metas, Jonathan here at Night Knowledge, and today I'm going to show you how to replicate my build in Once Human. We're going to talk about the weapons and armor to get, mods to equip, cradle selections, and the ideal deviation to have equipped. Use the chapters below to skip appropriately, and as usual don't forget to like and subscribe for tons of guides and gameplay for Once Human. So if you've seen my recent gameplay videos of the Leah Research Lab, this is an SMG Frost Vortex build. Its strengths include never having to reload, being easy to set up, can mix well with other weapons, and is flexible, being able to deal high damage to both groups and single targets. Its only weaknesses is that it uses a metric ton of ammo, and it may not be the strongest for single targets like shrapnel builds. But with that being said, I do play with a very strong shrapnel build friend, and we always come up as the highest DPSers and are almost always tied for damage. This build revolves around the primary weapon, the chest, and essentially armor mods to make it work. It's really fast to set up, and a lot of it is very flexible. So let's start off with the primary weapon, which is the Icy Rain Epic Vectors SMG. You can actually obtain this from the Mystic chest in Rotten Saddle. Let's look at the abilities of this gun. On a crit, there is a 40% chance of triggering a Frost Vortex, and then, when a Frost Vortex is triggered, restore 15% of your magazine. The way that this build works is that you're going to be triggering so many crits, it's going to trigger a ton of Frost Vortexes and restore your magazine constantly, so you're never going to actually have to reload. If you're not reloading, that means you're damaging the boss. There should be at least 3 Frost weapon mods, and the one I'm using is called Vortex Multiplier, which increases the number of vortexes by 1 and increases their damage by 10%. With the +1 vortex on the actual SMG, this brings our Frost Vortex count to 3 at one time. There is the highest chance of getting Frost Vortex weapon mods through the hard and pro Ravenous Hunter Great One fight at the Monolith of Greed. When it comes to weapon accessories, I select all mods that increase my stability, so you're not fighting with your mouse to keep it straight. This is very important since you'll be constantly shooting. When it comes to the magazine slot though, I use the legendary version that increases the magazine size by 10, but you can easily use the rare or epic version that'll help your stability instead, which is great when you're shooting at enemies from far. Don't forget to calibrate both your weapons and armor to the max, and look out for weapon blueprint calibrations that have bonuses to crit rate. The next critical part of this build is the chest piece, which is the Frost Tactical Vest, an epic chest piece. This piece, just like the Icy Rain, can be found in the world, specifically in the Red Sands province, the 73 source extraction point mystical chest. This is a key armor piece, meaning that you can only have one of these kinds of armor equipped at a time. The Frost Vest causes your Frost Vortex to generate ice spikes that deal frost damage at 100% of your psi intensity. This will pump your damage to insane heights. The mod I have equipped is nothing special though, so I picked the one that has an attribute effect that increases status damage. There is a tempting legendary blueprint for the chest called the Stealth Walker Wrap that causes the Frost Vortex to suck enemies to the center, but I think the extra damage from the ice spikes is always worth it. As for the rest of the armor, I have a 3 and 2 mix and match of Lonewolf and Stormweaver legendary sets that you can currently only obtain through the Wish Machine Blueprint Shop, each costing 3,000 Starcrom each. We have 3 pieces of the Lonewolf to increase our crit chance by a flat 5%, and then the third piece essentially increases our crit damage to up to 48%. We have 2 pieces of Stormweaver, primarily to increase your magazine size by 15%, which helps all guns, but you can easily switch it out for 2 pieces of the Shelterer or Savior legendary sets that can increase your damage by 8 to 20% respectively. When it comes to armor mods, we're looking for ones that increase crit chance, crit damage, and status damage. You'll obtain armor mods in hard and pro mode silos, which will likely mean you'll have to group up. 3 pieces of armor mods are very important: helmet, gloves, and pants. Starting with the helmet mod, we have Fateful Strike that increases your crit chance and crit damage, but prevents weak spot damage. The gloves have a very important mod called Crit Boost, which gives a big increase to crit chance. And finally, the pants has a good mod called Deadshot, which essentially increases your crit damage. The mask armor mod usually has something good for your weapon ability, in our case, Frost Vortex. In my opinion, the better one is called Obliteration, which increases the damage of the vortex depending on how many enemies are in it, making you deal more damage when dealing with adds. I can't decide on what mod is best for the boots. It might be just best to switch depending on your situation. I like Ferocious Charge, which increases your damage when you're within 10 meters of enemies, which is the ideal range for an SMG. If you're fighting bosses, you might be better off with the Secluded Strike mod, which increases damage when you're further away from the target. The melee weapon to this build doesn't matter, nor does the secondary weapon, because you really won't be switching. Although if you have to pick a weapon, you could equip the DB12 Backfire shotgun, which causes an enemy in the Frost Vortex that is shot by this gun to be frozen for 3 seconds, taking 60% more damage. This seems to work on mini bosses like the Floating Disciples, but won't on great ones like in Prime Wars. I feel like this gun works better if you have a teammate that is already using a Frost build, so you can just piggyback off the Frost Vortex and not have to switch guns. When everything is set up, you should have approximately a 50% chance of triggering a crit, which is pretty insane. So we're almost done at this point. Let's talk about the 8 Cradle Override buffs you should equip. Starting with the most important, we have Automatic Weapon Enhancement to increase SMG weapon damage and to reload the magazine by 10% on enemy kill, giving you a second way to reload your magazine in this build. Then Deviation Master, which increases your damage to deviants while your deviation is out. Tactical Combo, which increases weapon damage when you switch weapons or reload. Handgun Enhancement, that actually also increases shotgun damage and reloads 1 bullet on kill. Sustained Suppression, which will increase your Frost Vortex damage. Status Enhancement, which increases status damage. The remaining 2 is up to you, but I like to use Rapid Aid and Agility to increase your durability. The last thing we'll discuss is the deviation you should have synchronized to your Cradle, which is the Polar Jelly. Not only does it do a ton of AoE damage, it actually pulls enemies to it and makes them take more frost damage. This is an S tier deviation in my opinion, and can be obtained by participating in the Cargo Scramble PvP public event. Yes, PvP may not be for everyone, but maybe you can find a person or a friend that can drop one for you. I've participated in about 3 of them and have picked up 5 Polar Jellies, so they're quite common. And that's my Frost Vortex build. You'll find yourself just constantly shooting, never reloading, and being extremely good at taking out groups of enemies, and will top the DPS charts often, especially in silos. I hope this helps you out. Let me know in the comments below what modifications you'd make to this build. Check out the rest of my channel for other videos on Once Human, video games, board games, and other fun things. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Don't allow intruders in my laboratory!